Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to our webinar today, which is Festive Payroll Part 2, where we'll be bringing you some more seasonal payroll tips. My name is Sarah, and I'm joined in the background by Duncan, who is ready and waiting to answer all of your questions. So we do have a good session planned. So first we'll be kicking things off by showing you how to personalise your payroll with a festive touch. So things like adding colours to your employee list. And we'll also look at how to add a festive message to your pay slips using the comment feature in Payroll. Then we'll look at advancing holiday and absence years. So this is going to be perfect if you do record your holidays and absences within Payroll. And then we'll finish things off by looking at any changes in the new year, and we'll look at some of the updates announced in the recent budget. Finally, we'll close with a fun quiz just to test your knowledge. We will use live polling for that, so you'll just select your answer and submit it on screen. Feel free to join in, it is totally optional, but it is a great way just to recap what you've learned if you have attended both sessions, part 1 and part 2. So that's what I've got in store for you today. Let's get started. So I want to kick things off by looking at personalising your payroll. So one really simple way to do this is by changing the colours on your interface. So for example, you can customise the highlight colour that appears when you select employees. Keep it set to the default, but you can choose any colour at all that is going to work for you. You also have the option to change the colour of alternate rows. So this is actually really helpful if you have a long list of employees or dates to look at. I do find it breaks up the view and just makes it a little bit easier to read. And if you do need specific colours for any accessibility needs, this feature can make your payroll screen a little bit more user-friendly as well. But since it is the festive season, why not add a splash of seasonal colour? So if you do, your screen will look at something a little bit like the example on the slide. You can see where I've set alternative rows to a different colour. So what I want to do just to put that into practice and bring that to life a little bit is just jump into Payroll, and I'll show you exactly where to change your selection colours. So I'm just going to bring these slides down. You can see I've already got some colours going on there. And first thing I want to mention is you don't actually need to have anyone highlighted for this. So I can just leave my selection blank. And from here, I'm going to go up to the view menu and then just down to options. So just this second last option here. You'll see a few different settings in here, but the tab we're interested in is colours. So if I go along to colours, and this is where you can change the fill colour or the text colour for your employee list. So you can see you do have an option for text, this one with the little A in it, but I do prefer to just leave mine black. And it's this one on the right that will change the fill colour. Now for the highlight colour, you can see I've chosen a nice festive green, but if I wanted to change it, I would simply just click on this option and I can choose whatever colour I like. And you can see you can also define custom colours as well. So that's going to be perfect if you want to match to something maybe like company branding or something like that. Now I have chosen to change my alternate row colours, and again this is quite useful if you have a long list of employees to look at. It does just make the list a little bit easier to read. But for today, since it is a festive payroll webinar, I have chosen some festive colours, so we've got a bit of green and red going on there. So just want to close out of that so you can see what that looks like when I highlight some of my employees. So I'm just going to clear and swap. You can see when everyone's selected, they're going to be showing green. And then every alternative line is going to be a festive red. So you can see if you do have a lot of employees, that's just going to make things a little bit easier to read. But if I go back to viewing options, you can really easily revert it back to default colours. So if I just go revert to defaults, just this button down at the bottom here, and press OK, you can see that restores my original settings. So see, back to the standard white and blue. Just while we're looking at some customization options, I do just want to show you one more personalization option, which is your environment settings. So I'm going to go back to view and down to options. Now, most of these won't need changing, but if I go to the environment tab, you can see you do have the option to change the initial view that your payroll opens on. Now, by default, this will be selected to the home page, which is something relatively new in payroll. And that would be this page right here. So when you open payroll, a lot of you might initially open the program, and this is the first page that you would see when you open up your payroll. Now, if you would rather go in and just instantly see your payroll screen or any other options, so I mean, payroll is definitely the one I would recommend because that's where you're going to be doing most of your processing. Now, if you wanted to change that, you could go to your view options, along to environment, and select the payroll option. And what that means is rather than logging into payroll and seeing the home page, it would just take you straight into your employee list. And that's another one of the customization options. Now, just while we are in this window, I do want to show you one more customization option just before we recap, and that is function keys. So function keys are just a really quick shortcut to get to some places that you commonly use. So you can see you've got F1 for the help center, you've got F2 for your calculator. But what you can do is you can use a command prompt to open up any web pages that you might regularly use. So you can see, for example, I've got a few that I have defined in my F5, F6 and F7. So even if it's something like a radio station that you might listen to when you process the payroll, if I press F5, you can see I've got my tax week and tax month calendar. So that will take me straight to my tax calendar. If I do F6, I have some festive playlists just to get me into the Christmas spirit. And then last but definitely not least, if I do my F7, I open up my upcoming webinars where I can register for any future webinars that are coming up. So totally up to you what you put in there, but really handy on streamlining your process. And any pages or things like a tax calendar or a radio station or anything that you use regularly, you can choose that in here and you can set up the command and you've got those quick links to where you need to be. So that's a few different customization options in payroll. I do just want to jump back to the slides for a bit of a recap. So we've looked at customizing our colours, and remember, this can help for accessibility purposes, or if you just have a really large payroll list, it's just a little bit easier to identify your dates and information. We've also looked at personalising our initial view. So payroll opens on the page that you want it to. So remember, by default, it will go to the home page, but you can change it to payroll if you want to go in and look at your employee list straight away. We've then looked at personalising our payroll by using function keys. And remember, these keys allow you to quickly open other applications or web pages whilst you're working in Sage 50 Payroll. So we looked at the tax calendar, we looked at a YouTube playlist and our upcoming webinars page as well. And you can open them with a single keystroke. It is all about saving time and just making your workflow a bit smoother. But on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see the command prompt that you would use, and you would just put that in front of the web page that you would want to open. So definitely get the handouts downloaded if that's a shortcut that you want to try, and maybe try setting up some web pages to open from Payroll, because you can just copy and paste it from the slides. And those are a few different ways that you can customize your payroll, so it makes your way of working even easier. So next up, we're going to look at how to add festive payslip comments to your employees' payslips. Now, it is a great way just to spread a little seasonal cheer and make your payroll feel a little bit more personal during the holidays. Now, it is quite common at this time of year just to include a message on there, and it is very straightforward to do, is the good news. So you do have two different options. You can add a comment to an individual employee. So that's going to be perfect if you want to include a more personal message. Or you can apply a message to all or multiple employees all at once using a global change. But these comments can be applied to all standard payslip layouts. So that is whether you're using email, laser, or even online payslips. For online payslips, the process is exactly the same. So it just depends whether you've set up the services for your employees or not. But the way you would add that message on there is exactly the same, no matter if it's a normal payslip or if it's an online payslip. So in this section, I will show you both methods, so how to add it for an individual and how to apply a festive message to a few employees at once. So with that said, let's get jumped back into Payroll and look at some payslip comments. So I'm just going to close out of my options. And I'm going to look at my monthly employees today. So I'm just going to make sure my processing date is set. And the first scenario I want to look at is adding a payslip comment for an individual employee. So to do this, I'm going to look at Jingle first. So to do this, I'm going to open up their record. And I'm going to go along to the Analysis tab. And you can see under Electronic Documents, just on the right there, I can put a comment in here. And that's exactly where you would want to be entering the comment, no matter if it's a standard payslip that you use or if it's an online payslip. So exactly the same place. So if I'm adding it just to one specific employee, I might want to make it a little bit more personal. So I'm just going to put Happy Holidays Jingle. Thanks for all the hard work. And I'm just going to save that in the record. And it's as simple as that. So when you process the pay run for the employee, the comment will now appear on their payslip. Now, remember what I said earlier, this employee doesn't have online services enabled, but if they did, the comment would also appear when you upload their payslip to the online portal for them to view. So I'm just going to save and close this record. And I do just want to show you what that looks like on a standard payslip. Just going to look at my laser payslip. See, comment just right up at the top there. And if you want to remove the comment, obviously once the holiday season is over, it would just be as simple as going in and removing that from the Analysis tab of the record. But I do want to look at the second option we talked about. So we've looked at how to do it for one specific employee, but I might want to add a generic message in bulk for my other employees. So to do this, I can highlight the rest of my employees, and I can go to tasks up at the top and down to global changes. From here, I could go to electronic documents, and then I would select set payslip comments. And I'm just going to keep it simple and generic if I'm adding it in bulk. So I'm just going to keep this one to happy holidays and press OK. See, a confirmation message will come up, and it'll tell you exactly how many employee records are going to be updated. So I'm just going to say yes to that. And you can see that message is now applied to my employees. So if I just go into pre-update reports, look at that. You can see that festive message is there for my 4 employees now. And removing it works exactly the same. So you can remove comments using global changes. So you would do it exactly the same. You would go to your tasks, down to global changes, to your electronic documents, and you can see you also have an option to clear payslip comments. So that's going to be handy because once the festive season is over, you can just clear all of those comments out in bulk. Now, if you're using online payslips, I do just want to show you a bit of an example of what that would look like. So I'm already logged in as an employee to my Sage HR, and I've received my December payslip. So if I just go ahead and view that, so you can see if I scroll down to the bottom, we have the comment just on the bottom there. So exactly the same steps to add the comment, and it will pull through no matter what payslip format you're going to be using. So I do just want to go back to the slides just to recap. So we have looked at adding a comment into the individual, and we did that by going into the record and into the analysis tab. We then took a look at adding it to multiple employees, and that was through global changes. So remember, that was tasks, global changes, electronic documents, and set payslip comment, and that will do it in bulk. But remember, probably want to use more of a generic message for that one. And once the festive season is over, you can also remove it in bulk as well. So definitely a bit of a faster way to get those comments on there. So next up is advancing holiday and absence years. So if you record holidays or other absences in Sage 50 Payroll using the absence diary, it is quite common to have a holiday year that'll run alongside the calendar year. So it'll start in January and it'll end in December. If that applies to you, we are now approaching that point where we'll probably need to start thinking about advancing your holiday and absence year so you can begin recording and tracking your absences for 2026. Now, the process is really straightforward, but I do want to guide you through a bit of a 4-step approach just to make sure everything is covered before you make the change. So first up is printing your holiday and absence reports. And that's just getting you to check all the absences and the holidays for the current year have actually been recorded correctly. So you can save copies for future reference, and you can just do a bit of a check to make sure everything looks good before you move on to the next step. You then want to review your holiday settings. So if your scheme does allow unused entitlement to be carried forward into the new year, I'll show you where to find those settings and how to switch it on or off dependent. want to take a backup. So we always recommend taking backups at multiple points during the process, but especially before a big change like this. And reason being, it is really just a safety net in case anything goes wrong. And then finally, I'll show you the different ways you can move your holiday year forward into 2026. So actually advancing that holiday year and carrying forward unused holidays if it's applicable to your scheme. So with that said, let's jump into the demo and we'll go through these steps together. So I'll just bring those slides down. And for this example, I do just have one holiday scheme set up in my company. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check my current holiday and absence year start date. And to do that, I'm just going to go to company, just in the bottom left, and I'm going to go into my company settings. And then I'm going to go along to the absence tab. And you can see in here, both my absence year and holiday year, and in my case, they run 1st of January to 31st of December. And this is where you originally set them up. And it's also where you can advance the years when you're ready by clicking these buttons. But we're not going to do that just yet. First thing I want to do, I want to make sure everything is correct first. So I'm just going to cancel out of this page. And I'm going to look, and I'm going to move on to step 1, which is actually running holiday and absence reports. So to do this, I'm going to go into my reports just above my employee list. And here you'll see a folder dedicated to absence reports, and that's exactly where we want to be. If you do need more detailed information, you can run reports showing start and end dates and things like that, so absence types and comments. But for just a quick overview, I do recommend the holiday year summary report, which is just a little bit further down the list here. Now I've popped that into my favourites. So I'm just going to preview that for now. And you can see this report will show entitlement, holiday taken, any booked but not yet taken, and the remaining days as well. And in my example, you can see 3 employees actually still have holidays left. And in my scheme, carrying those days forward are allowed, so those days should roll into next year. So at this point, you might want to save or export these reports or save them as a PDF, just so you have a record for future reference. And if you look at this report and there's some bits missing, if you need to add any missing absences, you want to do that now before you advance the holiday year and then rerun the reports just to confirm everything is up to date. So we've looked at our report. Next, I want to review the holiday scheme setting. So to do that, I'm just going to close out my reports and I'm going to still be in my company tasks, but this time I'm going to go to holidays. You can see I just have my one scheme in here. And I'm going to select that scheme and just edit so I can review the details. So on the entitlement tab, you'll see the option to carry forward any unused entitlement. Now, if this is ticked, what that means is any unused holiday will be added to next year's entitlement when you then go ahead and advance the holiday year. You can also allow employees to take some of next year's entitlement early, so just this option over here, which would then mean it would carry forward as a negative value, but I haven't enabled that yet. But if your company policy is you either use a holiday or you lose it, it gets reset, then you want to make sure that this box is unticked. And what that means is when you advance, everything will then just reset to the standard. Now that we've reviewed our scheme So everything looks good to me, no settings that I need to change. The next thing I want to do is take a backup. So I'm just going to go File in the top left, go to Backup, and I'm just going to name this something really clear. So I'm just going to go into my Backups folder. I'm just going to name it Advanced Holiday Year. And then you know exactly what that particular backup is for. And you do have that safety net before going ahead and making your big change. So my backup's successfully taken. So now we're ready to actually advance the year. Remember, you can do that from your company settings in the absence tab, using these buttons just on the right here. But you can also do it in the wizards as well. So you'll be going to wizards just up at the top and then down to advanced holiday year. I'm going to use the wizard today, so I'm just going to click next. I'm going to review the current settings, so they all look good to me. So both of my absence and holiday years start on the 1st of Jan, so I can leave both of them ticked. With that said, I'm just going to click finish. And that's it. The holiday year is now advanced. So if I go back to company, add settings, and go back to my absence tab, you can see my start date has now updated to 1st of January 2026. Now I do want to check an employee record just to confirm. So Mr. Claus actually had 2 days remaining to take. I'll just go into the employee record, to absence and into holiday. You can see those 2 days have been carried over for 2026, which gives him 27 days for that holiday year. So it looks like that has worked exactly how I want it to. And that's why running the reports, especially if you do carry forward your days, is really important, because then you can review and make sure everything looks correct. So that is it for advancing the holiday year. Do you want to run through just a quick recap before we move on? So remember, step 1 was running and saving any holiday or absence reports. Step 2 was checking our actual holiday scheme settings for our carry forward options. And that's just so we know exactly what it is to expect. We then took a backup. So it is a big change that we're making, and we took it back so we have that safety net to go back to if anything isn't correct. And then last but not least, we then advance the holiday year. And remember, you could do that using the wizard, or you can do it in your settings and the absence tab as well. But that is it. With all that said, you would be ready to start recording your absences for 2026. But as always, for more detail, you can follow the full guide that's linked on the slides. So if you haven't got the handouts downloaded, make sure to get them downloaded if you haven't already. So that brings us on to one of the last bits of today's webinar, which is just planning for the new year. So recent budget announcement, we are a bit early, but it is always best to be as prepared as you can be for these things. So starting from April 2026, and it will come round pretty fast, here's what you need to know. So the national minimum wage for employees aged 21 and over will increase to £12.71 per hour. The LEL will go up to £6,708 per year, which works out at around £129 per week. And remember, that will affect eligibility for certain statutory payments as well. Next up, statutory sick pay is going to increase, and that will increase to £123.25 per week. And then statutory parental payments will rise to £194.32. Now, this one is a long way off, but it is quite a big change, so I did still want to mention it. If we look ahead to April 29, there is an important update, and that is around salary sacrifice pension schemes. So a big change there is only the first £2,000 per year will be exempt from employee and employer national insurance contributions. So like I said, it is a long way off, but this is definitely something to bear in mind for long-term planning for you as a business and as an employer. So that is all of the changes to be aware of and definitely have on your radar. Like I said, I know April is a way off. We're a few months early, but it will be here before you know it. So that does bring us to the end of the content for today's webinar. Now, I do want to wrap things up with our festive payroll quiz. Now, it will be a mix of questions, this one, and that will be from both parts 1 and parts 2 of our festive webinar. And you simply just want to select your answer on screen. I'll give you around 45 seconds or so just to get your answers in. We'll look at what people thought, and then we'll look at what the correct answer was as well. So just a bit of fun to end our festive webinars. So with that said, let's look at our first question. So there's 7 questions today. Like I said, I'll give you around 45 seconds to get your answers in. So first question today is, how long can you postpone auto-enrolment for a seasonal worker? So is that up to 3 months, up to 6 weeks, or until the end of their contract? That's how long can you postpone auto-enrolment for a seasonal worker? I can see some good answers coming in there. I'll give it about 10 more seconds. Great, looks like most of you have answered, so I'll go ahead and close that down. And let's have a look and see what people thought. So looks like definitely an overwhelming majority there, so up to 3 months, and that was the correct answer. A couple of people saying up to 6 weeks, or up to until the end of their contract, but up to 3 months, and remember that's from their start date or the date that they first become eligible. So that would be the maximum amount of time that you could postpone them for. So let's move on to question number 2. And this is one that catches some people out, but question 2 is, what process date should I use if I'm paying employees early in December? So is that the actual date that employees receive their pay, the regular or contractual pay date, the last day of the calendar month, or the last day of the tax month? That's what process date should I use if I'm paying employees early in December? See some good answers coming in there. Give it about 10 more seconds just to get your answers submitted. Looks like most of you have voted, so let's close that down and see what everyone thought. So question 2, what process date should I use if I'm paying employees early in December? So 79% of you said the regular or contractual pay date. We did have 13% saying the last day of the calendar month, but the correct answer was the regular or contractual pay date, which is spot on. Remember, you do want to report your usual pay date, even if the money is getting paid a little bit sooner due to bank holidays, as that can affect employees who are on income-based universal credit. So definitely an important one to bear in mind, especially around the festive season if you're paying early. So you do want to report the usual date. So let's move on to the next question, which is question 3. And that is, in which of these scenarios should you not advance pay? Processing statutory payments, you process salary sacrifice pensions, your pension provider requires a contribution file for every period, or is it all of the above? That's in which of these scenarios should you not advance pay? I'll give it a few more moments for you to get your answers in. See some good answers coming through there. Great, it looks like most of you have voted, so I will go ahead and close the poll down and let's take a look and see what everyone thought. So in which of these scenarios should you not advance pay? 82% went with all of the above. 12% did think you're processing statutory payments, which is correct, but so are the other two scenarios. So it is all of those situations that you can't use the advance pay function. So well done, most of you did get that right. And remember, don't worry if you can't use the advance pay function, you can just process separate periods in advance instead. So another way to do it. Let's move on to question 4. So question 4 is, how can you add a pay element to multiple employees at once? So is that in enter payments? Is it in the employee record? Using global changes? How could you add a pay element to multiple employees at once? See some good answers coming in there. For about 10 more seconds just to get your answers in. Great, let's have a look and see what everyone thought. So how can you add a pay element to multiple employees at once? Had a clean sweep with this one. So everyone went for using global changes, which is great because that is the correct answer. So well done, everyone. Clean sweep with that one, which is great. So let's move on to the next question. That is, how do you add a payslip comment to online payslips? So in step 5 of the online services settings, is it in the analysis tab of the employee record, or is it when uploading online payslips? That's how do you add a payslip comment to online payslips? Starting to see some answers coming through, so I'll give it maybe 15, 20 more seconds just to get those all submitted. Great, it looks like most of you have got your answers in there. So let's close that poll down and see what everyone thought. So how do you add a payslip comment to your online payslips? Now, majority has went for in the analysis tab. We do have 10% saying in step 5 of the online services settings and 5% going for when uploading online payslips. But the correct answer was in the analysis tab of the employee record. Now, remember, there is no difference if you're using online payslips or if you're using paper payslips or email, you would still add the comment in exactly the same place. So well done to everyone who got that right. Now let's move on to the next question. So question 6, and this is multiple choice. So that is, where can you advance your holiday and absence years? So remember, multiple correct answers for this one. Is that company, settings, absence, company legislation, tasks, advance holiday year, or employee record? Remember, there's a couple of options for this one. See some answers coming in there. Give it about 10 more seconds just to get those submitted. Great, looks like most of you have voted. So let's take a look and see what people thought. So where can you advance your holiday and absence years? So majority have went for company, settings, absence, and tasks, advanced holiday year. 32% thinking employee record. But the correct answers were A and C. So company settings, absence, and tasks, advanced holiday year. If you're looking in the employee record, remember that would be just to review the holiday scheme that has been advanced. So you can either do it through your company settings absence tab or tasks advanced holiday year, and that'll get you to the advanced holiday year wizard. So a couple different places that you can perform that action. So with that said, let's move on to our last question of today, which is about planning for the new year. And that is, what is the new rate of SSP from April 2026? That's what is the new rate of SSP from April 2026. Is that 123.25, 194.32, or 118.75? That's the new rate of SSP from April 2026. Looks like most of you have voted. I'll give it a couple more seconds. Great, let's see what everyone thought. Definitely a majority here. So most of you went for 123.25, which is great. That is correct. 5% going for 194.32, which is in fact the rate for the parental payments. So it looks like a couple of you have been caught out there on that last question. But that brings us to the end of the quiz today. So like I said, just a bit of fun to wrap up the festive webinars this season. So hope you all had a bit of fun with that and got a few questions right as well. So I do want to wrap things up today just by running through a little bit of further support. So we do have our upcoming webinars for January available to register to now. So we do have a master of mistakes, have maternity pay and sick pay, and a nominal link as well, and a couple different dates and times that you can attend. So get yourself to sage.co.uk/webinars and get yourself signed up for 2026. Do you want to shout out the help centre as well? So you can access that by clicking on the help icon just next to your reports in Sage 50 Payroll. You can access your technical support guides or recorded on-demand webinars and information on how to get in touch with our technical support team if you need to as well. And last but not least, I want to shout out Sage Uni. You can do anything from bite-sized learning to full certifications on there, and you can do it entirely all at your own pace. The best part is it's totally free to set up an account, so get yourself to sageu.com to explore. Hi again, everyone. I really hope you've all enjoyed today's session. I will go ahead and close the session down in the next minute or so. As you exit, you will see a short survey. If you please take a moment to fill that out, that would be really appreciated. We love hearing what you thought, what worked well, anything that could be improved, so we can keep making these sessions even better for you. You'll also receive a follow-up email later today. It'll have a link to today's webinar recorded on there and info on how to register for any future sessions. But thanks again from me and Duncan for joining us today. Hopefully we will see you again soon. I hope you all have a lovely festive break, but it is goodbye for now.